What happens when power, which should be sacred, is tainted by ambition and shifting values? Have you ever wondered why even the greatest Islamic dynasty could experience such a dramatic transition of power? Not due to external enemies, but because of internal dynamics and differing interpretations. Prepare yourself as we uncover the shocking story of how a dynasty built on the promise of justice ultimately underwent a change in leadership through a series of complex events. This is not just ancient history, it is a timeless lesson about political dynamics and the pursuit of justice within the framework of Islamic civilization.
After the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in 632 CE, the Muslim community was led by the Rashidun Caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, and Ali ibn Abi Talib. This era was known for leadership based on consultation, shura, and Islamic values of justice. However, after the death of Caliph Ali ibn Abi Talib and the end of Hassan ibn Ali's brief rule, who relinquished the caliphate for the sake of unity, the Umayyad family rose to power through Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah, previously the governor of Syria since the time of Caliph Umar, built strong political legitimacy after the prolonged conflict of the Battle of Siffin and the subsequent arbitration, Tahkim. In 661 CE, Hassan ibn Ali handed over power to Muawiyah, who was then proclaimed caliph, establishing the Umayyad Dynasty, the first hereditary caliphate, replacing the consultative system. In Sunni understanding, Hassan's surrender of power to Muawiyah is considered a valid political ijtihad to prevent further bloodshed among Muslims, and this period is known as the Year of Unity. The Umayyad rule was centered in Damascus, Syria, and under their governance, Islam expanded widely, reaching Spain in the west and India in the east. However, the shift from a consultative system to monarchy sparked debates in Islamic history, including criticism from groups who felt the leadership had strayed from the early spirit of Islam. Here, the seeds of differing perspectives were sown, particularly among the descendants of Banu Hashim and supporters of al-Bayt, who believed the leadership had taken a different direction. During its peak, the Umayyad dynasty achieved remarkable prosperity and territorial expansion. Caliphs like Abdul Malik ibn Marwan and his son Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik ruled with meticulous organization. Arabic became the official state language, administrative systems were strengthened, and infrastructure projects such as the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Umayyad Mosque stood as testaments to Islamic civilization's progress. Yet, these political successes were overshadowed by internal tensions. Criticism arose from factions who viewed the Umayyad rule as nepotistic, marginalizing non-Arab Muslims, Mawali, and harsh toward political opponents. Figures from al-Bayt and their supporters began to resist quietly. One of the most devastating events was the tragedy of Karbala, where Imam Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was killed by the forces of Caliph Yazid ibn Muawiyah in 680 CE. This event left a deep wound in the hearts of many Muslims. While Sunni scholars viewed this as the ruler's injustice, it did not invalidate the caliphate's legitimacy in general. Sunni scholars maintained that as long as a leader upheld prayer and Islamic law, rebellion was forbidden unless clear disbelief was evident. Sectarian conflicts intensified. The Shia believed only the descendants of Ali and Fatima had the right to lead the Muslim community. Meanwhile, other groups, including the Kharijites, rebelled with their own interpretations. Tensions between the Umayyad central authority and opposition grew, especially from the Abbasids, a branch of Banu Hashim who claimed legitimacy over the caliphate. The Umayyad dynasty's decline was fueled by corrupt governance, discontent among non-Arab populations, and pressure from ideological factions. This situation was exploited by the revolutionary Abbasid movement, which eventually overthrew the Umayyads and established a new dynasty. The fall of the Umayyad Dynasty did not happen overnight. It was a gradual process, beginning with deep-rooted dissatisfaction in the eastern regions of the Caliphate, such as Khorasan, Iraq, and surrounding areas. Many non-Arab Muslims, Mawali, felt unjustly treated by the Umayyad elite centered in Damascus. Heavy taxes, discrimination, and the ruler's exclusivity fueled the flames of rebellion underground. In this context, the Abbasids, descendants of Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's uncle, orchestrated a secret movement. They claimed that Islamic leadership should return to the Prophet's family. Unlike the Shia, who exclusively championed Ali and his descendants, the Abbasids positioned themselves as an alternative. They cleverly allied with Shia groups but did not bind themselves to any single sect. The Abbasid revolution was led by Abu Muslim al-Khurasani, a charismatic military leader from Khorasan. He successfully rallied a vast force comprising Mawali, Eastern Arabs, and supporters of al-Bayt. Through guerrilla tactics and strategic propaganda, they launched an open revolt against the Umayyad dynasty. Their slogan, Ar-Rida min al-Muhammad, the approved one from the family of Muhammad, garnered widespread sympathy. In 750 CE, at the Battle of the Zab in Iraq, the Abbasid forces decisively defeated the army of Caliph Marwan II. The last Umayyad Caliph, Marwan, was killed while fleeing to Egypt. With this victory, Abu al-Abbas al-Safa was proclaimed the first Abbasid Caliph, heralding a new dynasty founded on justice and the restoration of rights to al-Bayt. However, like the Umayyads, the Abbasid rule soon became a hereditary monarchy. Despite initial promises of justice and protection for the Prophet's family, many Shia leaders were later sidelined or even killed. The Abbasids did not transfer power to Ali's descendants, but kept it for themselves as another branch of Banu Hashim. From the Sunni perspective, the Abbasids' rise was part of legitimate political dynamics, as long as the caliph's appointment involved consultation or allegiance from representatives of the community. Sunni scholars accepted the Abbasid Caliphate broadly, as it maintained religious and communal stability. Thus, a new caliphate emerged, centered in Baghdad, a city that would later become a beacon of knowledge and civilization. Yet, internal conflicts and ideological challenges persisted. Divergent views among Muslim groups remained, including Shia who felt betrayed by the Abbasids for using the name of al-Bayt to seize power. After overthrowing the Umayyad dynasty, the Abbasids moved the caliphate's capital from Damascus to Baghdad, a city founded by Caliph al-Mansur in 762 CE. Designed as a hub of knowledge, administration, and power, Baghdad quickly grew into the largest and most important city in the Islamic world, and indeed, the entire world at the time. The second Abbasid Caliph, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, was a skilled administrator. He strengthened the caliphate's authority, structured the government, and eliminated political opponents deemed dangerous, including supporters of Ali's descendants who had been promised power. One notable victim was Muhammad al-Nafs al-Zakiyya, a descendant of Hassan ibn Ali, who led a revolt in Medina but was ultimately killed by Abbasid forces. These actions confirmed that the Abbasids' rule diverged from the expectations of some Shia groups, despite sharing Banu Hashim lineage. The Abbasids refused to yield power to Ali and Fatima's descendants, arguing they were more deserving due to their closer relation to the Prophet through Abbas and their superior political capability. In Sunni thought, lineage is not a prerequisite for Islamic leadership. What matters is the ability to uphold justice, protect religion, and care for the community. Thus, as long as the Abbasids demonstrated commitment to Sharia and stability, most Sunni scholars continued to support them. On the other hand, the Abbasid bureaucracy expanded rapidly. Ministers, governors, and state officials were appointed from diverse backgrounds, including Persians and Mawali, creating a robust administrative system. However, this also led to internal factions and conflicts between central authority and regional governors, eventually weakening the caliph's control. Additionally, the Abbasid consolidation was marked by scholarly pursuits. Under al-Mansur and his successors, works of philosophy, medicine, astronomy, and mathematics were translated from Greek and Persian into Arabic, laying the foundation for Islam's golden age of intellectual achievement. Yet, beneath this progress, sectarian tensions sharpened. Shia groups, feeling betrayed, began forming distinct sects separate from Sunni Islam. Extremist factions like the Ismailis and Zaydis emerged as opposition to central authority, forcing the Abbasids to confront recurring sectarian uprisings. In Sunni understanding, these conflicts were seen as trials, fitna, in Islamic history, to be addressed with fairness and balance. The caliphate remained valid as long as it did not deviate from Sharia, even if political realities sometimes involved oppression. Sunni scholars acknowledge the flaws of individual caliphs but emphasize the importance of unity and stability. The Abbasid rule was now firmly established in Baghdad, but ideological and sectarian struggles were far from over. In fact, this period marked a critical point in the ongoing Sunni-Shia divide, shaping the future of Islamic history. Amid the political turmoil and ideological upheavals of the early Abbasid era, a moral force emerged to uphold the stability of the Muslim community: the Sunni scholars. They were not merely experts in worship and knowledge, but also guardians of faith and guides for the Ummah during times of great tribulation. From the Abbasids' rise, Sunni scholars maintained a complex relationship with the caliphs. On one hand, they were respected as religious authorities. On the other, they faced political pressure to support government policies, including those related to doctrine. Many, however, refused to compromise their integrity, remaining steadfast in their scholarly and ethical principles. A prominent example is Imam Abu Hanifa, founder of the Hanafi school. Living in the early Abbasid period, he was critical of the ruler's policies. Despite his scholarly prestige, he declined a judicial position offered by Caliph al-Mansur, unwilling to engage in politics that conflicted with his conscience. As a result, he was imprisoned and died under distressing circumstances. His steadfastness set a powerful example for future scholars. Other luminaries like Imam Malik in Medina, Imam al-Shafi'i in Egypt and Iraq, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who became a symbol of Sunni courage, also emerged. A significant test occurred during the reign of Caliph al-Ma'mun with the Mihna, Inquisition. This policy forced scholars to endorse the Mu'tazilite doctrine that the Quran was created. Some scholars complied under duress, but Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal resisted despite torture, imprisonment, and beatings. He declared the Quran as the eternal speech of Allah, not a creation. His resilience restored public trust in scholars and cast doubt on state interference in matters of creed. The struggles of these imams established a key pillar of Sunni thought: the separation of religious and political authority. Sunni scholars preserved the teachings of the Prophet through verified chains of transmission, sanad, and systematic knowledge. While they did not endorse rebellion against rulers who upheld prayer and avoided blatant disbelief, they also did not legitimize oppression. This principle was rooted in prophetic hadiths, advocating patience under unjust rulers to maintain communal unity. Sunni scholars also played a crucial role in countering extremist Shia and Kharijite ideologies that sought to overthrow the government violently. They promoted knowledge, preaching, and sincere advice as means of reform. In Sunni understanding, the Caliphate is an Islamic political system but does not require a specific lineage. Justice, Sharia, and the welfare of the Ummah are paramount. This stance positioned Sunni scholars as mediators between the people and the rulers, voices of truth untainted by power. Their influence spread widely through madrasas and scholarly circles, forming the intellectual foundation for Islamic progress over centuries. Yet, challenges persisted. Behind the Abbasid walls, ideological battles raged on, and the Sunni-Shia divide would enter new, more overt phases. As Abbasid power solidified in Baghdad, the ideological clash between Sunni and Shia Islam became more systematic and pronounced. These groups differed not only in jurisprudence, but also in core principles of leadership and historical interpretation. In Sunni thought, the caliphate did not depend on lineage, but on allegiance, bay'ah, and a leader's ability to uphold justice and sharia. Thus, caliphs from Abu Bakr to the Umayyads and Abbasids were deemed legitimate, even if not descendants of Ali ibn Abi Talib. While individual rulers' errors or injustices were criticized, the caliphate system itself remained valid. Conversely, Shia ideology, particularly among the Twelvers and Ismailis, held that only Ali and Fatima's descendants could rightfully lead the Ummah. They viewed the reigns of Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman as illegitimate diversions from Ali's rightful claim. Some extremist factions even accused prominent companions of betrayal, except for a select few. This conflict was not confined to texts. It spilled into bloodshed. Radical Shia groups launched armed revolts against the Abbasids, feeling betrayed by hollow promises of justice for all al-Bayt. Uprisings led by Zayd ibn Ali, Yahya ibn Zayd, and later the Carmatians demonstrated the inevitability of this struggle. Ironically, the Abbasids, despite their prophetic lineage, increasingly aligned with Sunni thought, as state stability required curbing extremism. Sunni scholars became court references, while Shia scholars often lived under surveillance or oppression. This era also saw the composition of texts defending Sunni creed. Figures like al-Ash'ari, al-Maturidi, and al-Ghazali developed Sunni theology to counter Mu'tazilite, Shia, and other extremist ideologies. Books on creed were written, formal madrasas established, and chains of transmission rigorously preserved to prevent doctrinal infiltration. Sunni Islam positioned itself as a middle path, venerating all al-Bayt without deifying them and honoring all companions as essential to Islam's transmission. The Sunni-Shia divide was further influenced by global politics. Anti-Abbasid dynasties like the Umayyads and later the Fatimids in Egypt championed Shia Islam, creating rival caliphates. The Abbasids thus faced political and theological challengers. Yet, through scholarly strength, scholarly networks, and majority support, Sunni Islam remained the Muslim world's mainstream. Hadith compilers like al-Bukhari, Muslim, and Abu Dawud authenticated prophetic traditions, forming the basis of Sunni law and creed. This conflict was not merely fought with swords, but also in the realm of knowledge, a realm where Sunni Islam successfully shielded the Ummah from greater fragmentation, though sectarian shadows would linger for centuries. The Abbasid Golden Age spanned the 8th to 10th centuries, when the Caliphate stood as the pinnacle of global civilization. Caliphs like Harun al-Rashid and his son al-Ma'mun transformed Baghdad into a city of learning, culture, and innovation. The Islamic world became a beacon of progress while Europe languished in the Dark Ages. The Abbasids fostered an unprecedented intellectual environment. The House of Wisdom, Bait al-Hikmah, in Baghdad, translated Greek, Persian, and Indian scientific works into Arabic, introducing Muslims to Aristotle's philosophy, Indian mathematics, and Greek medicine, later advanced by Muslim scholars. Luminaries such as al-Khwarizmi, mathematics, Ibn Sina, medicine, al-Farabi, philosophy, al-Biruni, astronomy, and Ibn al-Haytham, optics, thrived in this atmosphere of inquiry. They didn't merely copy knowledge but enriched it, influencing Western thought for centuries. Sunni Hadith scholars like al-Bukhari, Muslim, and others compiled rigorously authenticated prophetic traditions, forming the backbone of Islamic law. The four Sunni schools, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali, matured during this era, spreading from Andalusia to Central Asia. Unlike the Umayyads, the Abbasids embraced intellectual diversity while anchoring it in Sunni orthodoxy. Differences in jurisprudence were tolerated within Islamic principles. However, challenges persisted. Mu'tazilite rationalism, extremist Shia sects, and free-thinking philosophies tested Sunni authority. Scholars like Al-Ghazali synthesized theology, Sufism, and law into a cohesive Sunni worldview. Sunni Islam's moderate, inclusive ethos underpinned the era's achievements. In Sunni thought, knowledge encompassed both reason and revelation, pursued with faith and ethics. Many scholars, like Al-Shafi'i and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, also practiced Sufism, blending outward and inward knowledge. Yet, as with all empires, decline loomed. Internal power struggles, weakening caliphal authority, and the rise of regional dynasties eroded central control. Baghdad's brilliance dimmed under conflict's shadow. But the Abbasids' intellectual legacy endured, equipping Muslims to reclaim greatness while safeguarding faith's purity. By the 11th to 13th centuries, the Abbasid Caliphate was in serious decline. Caliphal authority waned as military emirs held real power. Baghdad was no longer Islam's sole hub, with dynasties like the Seljuks, Fatimids, and Mamluks rising regionally. Corruption, succession disputes, and reliance on Turkish mercenaries further weakened the Abbasids. The final blow came in 1258, when Mongol forces under Hulagu Khan sacked Baghdad. The last Abbasid Caliph, al-Mustasim, was brutally killed. Libraries burned, scholars perished, and the city was razed, shocking the Muslim world. For many, it felt like civilization's collapse. Yet Sunni Islam endured beyond politics. Scholars continued teaching and preserving Sharia. Though the Caliphate's political power ended, Abbasid descendants survived in Cairo under Mamluk protection as symbolic caliphs until the Ottoman Sultan Selim Dirsun claimed the title in 1517. The Umayyads and Abbasids left indelible marks. The Umayyads expanded Islam from Spain to Central Asia, while the Abbasids built a legacy of knowledge, culture, and education that shaped Islamic civilization. For Sunnis, their history teaches that leadership is a trust, not a birthright, legitimized by Sharia, allegiance, and justice, not lineage. Success is measured by religious and communal welfare, not mere territorial expanse. Today, Muslims can glean timeless lessons, that discord weakens without wisdom, that differences must be managed, not magnified, and that true strength lies in unity of faith and intellectual excellence. The Umayyads and Abbasids are more than historical footnotes. They are chapters in Islam's journey, a journey once led not by numbers or weapons, but by divine light and scholarly rigor, passed down through generations of Sunni scholars.